morning, colleagues. The committee of the whole is called back to order. Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Yes, we're open on Chapter 11, correct?
Yes, Chapter 11.
Mr. Chair, could I take a 1-minute recess, have information to pass out to the body?
1 minute recess. Committee on the Whole is called back to order. Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Colleagues, I speak on Chapter 11 to, no pun intended, but the log that's being distributed right now is akin to the title of Chapter 11. Colleagues, I'll direct your attention to 49 floor amendments so far as of 8 a.m. that have been proposed in this chapter. The grand total of all of those floor amendments, Mr. Chair, is $249 million, 270,103. Mr. Chair, we've seen this movie before. We don't have to go that far back in history. Just in the last legislature, in the 37th, there was $120+ million attempting to appropriate against $27 million of possible funds available for appropriation. Mr. Chairman, this basically $250 million is double that. Trying to appropriate with a possible $39+ million. And even if you go into 2025 unaudited, Mr. Chair, we don't even know exactly what that number is based on other appropriations until we get a final scrub of what bills have been appropriated against that. My dear people of Guam, my colleagues on this floor have been asking you to watch. I ask you to watch. I ask you to take a look at the irresponsibility that this body is attempting to go down. Mr. Chair, these amendments are nothing but an attempt to get appropriations in a budget and say I did something when you're really doing nothing. These amendments would be an empty promise at $250 million with possibly $39 million available for appropriation. Now, Mr. Chair, many of these amendments are good amendments, and they have merit. But the fact that pretty much since day one of our deliberations, this was the move. The move was to move a ton of amendments into the miscellaneous provisions so that we possibly can't even get to some of the amendments that may have an appropriation value that could do the good that we might try to do. So by doing that, Mr. Chair, 49 amendments, essentially, we would have to sit here and try to deliberate and try to justify going back and forth why we're picking winners and losers. That is not a way to do a budget, Mr. Chair. That is not the way to be sincere about what we're doing. Once again, we only have to reflect back to the 37th Guam Legislature where the sincere thing was done. Mr. Chair, the sincere thing that was done was we removed all of those phantom appropriations from the budget. And when we removed those from the budget, we responsibly came back following November and passed a supplemental budget. Mr. Chair,
Senator Lujan, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, I yield my time to Senator Duenas.
Senator Duenas
Thank you,
has an
Senator
additional
Lujan.
5 minutes yielded time from Senator Lujan.
so when we came back, Mr. Chair, we did a supplemental appropriation and took care of many of the real priorities in our government. When those priorities were taken care of, Mr. Chair, then actually some of them were recognized that, as OFB has done, that those were so appropriate, they actually became part of the fixed costs of those agencies for which they were appropriated to. So that was sensible, it was right, it was correct. And Mr. Chair, that's why going into that fiscal year, we didn't have any deficit. We completed that fiscal year without a deficit. We currently, Mr. Chair, passed our first budget in this 38th legislature. We're tracking $88 million in excess revenue. So we did good work again. Thank you to a lot of the colleagues on the floor. But this, Mr. Chair, this is not the right thing to do. This, once again, will be the same attempt that was done in the 37th Guam Legislature, which was the wrong thing to do, and I'm glad that body at the time did not do the wrong thing and did the right thing, eliminated those amendments, and came back and introduced a responsible substitute appropriation. Mr. Chair, $250 million, possible $39 million available for appropriation, absolutely the wrong thing to do. Mr. Chair, at this time, I motion to remove all of these amendments from the miscellaneous appropriations area of the budget, and we continue on with our budget deliberations. That is my motion at this time, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion on the floor to remove all floor amendments on miscellaneous appropriations section. Are there any objections?
Mr. Chair, can we speak to the motion, or we have to object, or what?
You can speak on the motion.
Oh, okay, good. So, Mr. Chair, you know, the motion that...
Senator San Agustin, you're recognized.
Thank you. I was just wondering, that's why I was just dragging my, you know. Anyway, you know, the motion that the chairman is asking for is something that I did when I was the chair. And it was proffered by then Senator Frank Bloston, now the Speaker. But because we're doing the budget bill before the primary, I believe if we're going to do any other motion to do a supplemental, it should be before the general. Because everything's consistent, no? And I would actually amend that the supplemental should come in maybe as early as, August, September, October, but way before the general. Because the people of Guam need to know, where is this body moving? And like many other colleagues have said, there's several of us that are running for gubernatorial. They'll know where we're heading and how we will run the government if fortunate. And with that, I make the motion that the supplemental be done earlier. And if my colleagues could speak and identify a month that's agreeable, we can move from there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. Any other member wish to speak on the motion? Ranking Member Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Si Zeus Masi, Vice Speaker Manana, Si Zeus, to all that are here and to the listening audience. I just want to confirm, because the previous speaker, the good senator from Jigo, asked that there be a motion to have a supplemental bill done before November 3rd. My take is I want to make sure I understand this correctly, because the motion on hand was to eliminate all the floor amendments as it relates to appropriations. And maybe I can yield that question to the good oversight chair.
Would the oversight chair yield to the question from the ranking member?
Yes, thank you to the ranking member. I think that I don't have a problem with that. I think the language of that should be placed in administrative provisions as opposed to in the appropriation. So once we complete the miscellaneous appropriations, that amendment, which I will support, will be eligible in the miscellaneous administrative provisions.
That's why, Mr. Chair, I am asking the question as it relates to the previous speaker, because he said he wanted to amend that motion. So I just want to make sure how we're doing this. Is the motion to amend the good oversight chair's motion to eliminate, or is it, so maybe I'll yield to the, if you can ask the retiring speaker from GIGO, the good senator, if that's his intention, to put it in this provision to assure that it's done. So I don't know, maybe even take a minute break, but I'd like to hear the retiring speaker's intent, Mr. Chair.
Senator San Agustin, you yield to that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. My whole intent is, number one, I want to be consistent with this budget today. This is before the primary, so the supplemental should be before the general. I prefer to have it in actually August, September, October, one of those 3 months. Because you know, we just go through that, and then that's the intent, is to move it. And if it's voted on, I think it should be automatically put into the administrative provisions and done.
So is that
So
an
ranking member
amendment?
Barnes, he's looking to
Yeah.
put it into the miscellaneous provisions.
So he's going to put it in chapter 12 and not chapters. So I just wanted to make sure. He's
Yes.
going to put it on chapter 12 and not chapter 11.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it will be put in the chapter 12 that a supplemental will happen, not an excuse that we're going to wait until whenever. Thank you.
So did he answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did. I just wanted clarification for that. And I know that there's 45 amendments, I think 40 or 45 amendments, or 49 now. I'm just wanting to make sure that it's only the amendments that have a miscellaneous, an appropriation to it.
Right.
Is that correct? To the oversight chair.
Yes, these amendments that are currently enumerated in the 49 all have appropriations, and so that's why we're ruling the grand total out right now against the available for appropriation. But reconsideration for the supplemental can be based on the actuals amount for appropriation, and we can work on that together.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the clarification, Senator Masi.
Thank you, ranking member Muñoz Barnes. Any other member wish to speak?
Point
Senator
of, I rise to a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Your point of order,
We're
ma'am.
on Chapter 11, and the rules of engagement were that we're going to get the amendments prior to the beginning of the chapter. We had a long recess. We don't have those amendments yet. So the motion to remove all the amendments, I feel, is not yet in order until we get those before us, so we know exactly what he's trying to remove. And
Okay,
then there was a motion to affect Chapter 12. Are you entertaining that?
No, we're not entertaining chapter 2. Ranking member Barnes was just asking Senator San Agustin if he intended to put into chapter 12. We're not on chapter 12. We're only on chapter 11 at this moment.
So are we entertaining his amendment to the amendment?
No, he's not making an amendment to the amendment? Yeah.
All right. So if we could get the floor amendments, please,
Yes.
as a point of order.
Senator,
Mr. Chair, if I may speak to that.
sure.
Mr. Chair, every floor amendment is enumerated in this chart. And Mr. Chair, as you know, only the floor amendments being allowed are supposed to be in before we open the chapter. When we open the chapter, we have discussion first, and we are in the discussion portion. And then we go to the amendments after that. So my motion is completely in order because we are in the discussion portion. And colleagues, once again, Every one of the amendments is on this sheet without being physically on the floor.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Any other member wish to speak on the motion? Senator Barnett? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
My apologies. You weren't-
just one more
you were
point of
not-
order
you were
then.
not
Are
there.
we on the question section of this chapter?
Yes, we're already on the question section on chapter 11.
Well, all right, thank you.
Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidoswasi, Vice Speaker, Manana Sidos, to the people of Guam watching on our YouTube channel. Well, there you have it. There you have it, my dear people of Guam. We do the same process every budget session. And the process is, as the good chair has stated numerous times, members of the legislature are to submit their amendments ahead of time prior to the open of the chapter, and they are to be entertained in a first-come, first-serve basis. So a couple of the budget processes I've been through, that's what we've done. We allow these amendments to be debated, we allow them to be discussed, we allow them to be voted up or down, and based on that, they're placed into the budget. So what is in this substitute budget bill, we've learned is status quo for the people of Guam. Status quo public safety budget. Status quo in so many areas. And so while the chair of the committee is casting a broad stroke and saying that all of these amendments are just us trying to take credit for things and they mean nothing, it's offensive, not just to the members on this side of the aisle, but to the members who serve alongside the chair in the majority, because these amendments aren't nothing. There are good amendments in here that seek to address many of the shortfalls and the shortchangings that have become necessary, because the first order of business, again, with this substitute budget bill, was to take $40 million off of the top before we entertained anything with the kids with autism, before we entertained public safety for Guam, before we entertained services for those struggling with substance abuse. Before we did any of those meaningful, important things, the first order of business was to give the big businesses another $40 million business privilege tax rollback. And so the members of the legislature, myself included, in going through chapter after chapter after chapter and not being allowed to ask these agencies who are impacted by this BPT rollback, who continue to contradict what Mr. Guerrero and the Office of Finance and Budget and the chair says on the record. But we haven't had the opportunity to bring those directors and those agency staff in to get to the truth. And the truth is, this budget shortchanges critical services for the people of Guam. And now that we've proffered amendments to address these shortchanges, to give direct assistance to our people, to pay for services, mobile suicide response, services to kids with autism, services to those with severe mental and emotional disorders, you know, the most vulnerable in our community. Now that we're here at the moment where we would normally address these shortfalls and shortchangings, they want to close the chapter, throw the amendments in the trash can, and tell the people of Guam that those most vulnerable, those most impacted by the $40 million business privilege tax rollback will just have to wait. They are just supplemental, an afterthought. They're not even in the back seat. They're not even in the car. They're not even at the table. There are many good amendments in this chapter, some of them coming from members of the majority. So I'm not sure why they would support this motion when what we are trying to do is direct revenues, whether they're excess, to critical areas that are needed. And by throwing these amendments in the trash can and not allowing the people's representatives to go through the process that we were elected to do, it's disingenuous and disrespectful to those that this budget leaves out in the cold. And there are many who are going to be left out in the cold with this budget, because the first order of business, again, was to take care of our friends with another BPT rollback of 0.5% to the tune of $40 million. And now we can address the real important things that our island and our people need and deserve.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Any other member? Senator Parkinson, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm not surprised by this. This was, you know, we currently have some summer interns working at our office, and we talk about these budget sessions because so rarely are we in budget session this early that we can actually have our summer interns be meaningful parts of it. And so it was refreshing for me and for them that we were able to talk meaningfully about some of the things that are going on in this chamber. And one of the things they asked me is, why are all the amendments from the previous chapters being sent to the miscellaneous? You know, there's the reasons given on the floor, but there was a question of like the why of it. And I told them that my cynical view on it was that this was just one big, yeah, we'll get to it in miscellaneous. And that when we get to miscellaneous, the chair would find some way to dismiss all the amendments in one fell swoop. And here we are today. To my interns that are watching right now, your boss definitely called this one. And to my people of Guam, that's what's happening here. We're having a budget deliberation that is not really happening in good faith. All of the previous amendments that were done in line in previous chapters were, yeah, we'll put it in miscellaneous and you'll get a fair hearing on them here. Well, that's certainly not happening. And, you know, I see on this list, there's amendments from members of the majority as well. You got to ask yourselves, my freshman members of the majority, have you been treated and acted with in good faith? Because I don't think you have. And the people of Guam have not been acted with in good faith. We're going to skip all of these things to go into a supplemental budget. The reason we go into a supplemental budget is that we don't have time to go through all of these line items. Well, my people of Guam, this budget is not due until the end of August, and we are in July. If we needed to, we could take the time to go through every single one of these. And like my colleague said, that the retiring speaker, that a lot of these things are good things. These are good, necessary things that the most vulnerable among us need. And I see the totals, 250 million. And I know we don't have that much in excess revenue. But that's why we have this process. We deliberate one amendment at a time, and we go as long as we got the resources to keep going. If we appropriated the maximum amount of money we could, I would understand ruling the rest of these out of order and moving on and potentially doing a supplemental when we have excess revenues to buoy some of these programs. But that's not what's happening. We are marshaling full speed ahead for fiscal conservatism that is only there to serve the biggest of the biggest businesses. That is the priority. And I think the priority is wrong there. I disagree with a lot of the mechanisms and tools used in these deliberations, not because I think the tools themselves are wrong, but what we are aiming for is wrong. We should be aiming for the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people at the most efficient rates of service. Not the greatest amount of good for a certain amount of people at the expense of everyone else. To my freshman colleagues on the other side who have been dealt with in bad faith, I encourage you to come work with the minority to get your agenda through so that your agencies aren't being shortchanged. And I ask you to reject this budget because it shortchanges the people of Guam. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Any other member would like to speak on the motion? Senator Matanani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand what my colleague is trying to do, and I understand the concerns about this $249.2 million cumulatively being over the anticipated excess revenues. But I have to say that the amendments that I have proffered are not irresponsible at all. I have followed the rules of engagement. I followed the standing rules. I've done what I believe you're supposed to do as a senator, and you introduce amendments. And $21 million, yes, my amendment is for $21 million to the Guam Memorial Hospital, which during earlier proceedings when OFB was here, it was revealed that yes, they were short $21 million. The Guam Memorial Hospital themselves said they were short $21 million. And I said that I was going to fight for the Guam Memorial Hospital. And they need this $21 million. There's other amendments that I've proffered to help the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center and the Department of Public Health and Social Services. These are not just something that you just throw away and just not even consider. Like I said, I have followed the rules from the beginning. And I've also fought to defend the rules. And I just don't think it's fair that we are going to unilaterally, or not even unilaterally, just lump all of these amendments all together and say, no, we're not going to consider them. I just do not think that is fair, because I don't feel that we are addressing these shortfalls. We are not addressing these gaps in this budget that are critical, that we need to fund, and we need to discuss, and we need to debate, and talk about them, even if it is one by one. That is what we were elected to do. And I'm still just I'm not buying the idea that we should go back later and do a supplemental budget. Why not address it now? Why not debate it now? Why not do our work now? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Matanani. Any other member wish to speak on the motion? Senator Tidy, will you recognize, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to my colleagues, and good morning to the people of Guam who are watching this session. And believe me, I'm getting texts left and right about what's going on here. And some of the people who have been very diligent in watching the legislature and how it moves, they recalled, is this the same thing that the legislature did in FY25, the FY25 budget? And I responded, yes, it is. It's the same thing. But the difference between when we did in FY25 versus today, what's happening today in question, is that the supplemental budget, if I'm not mistaken, from the previous oversight chair, did not happen until after October 1st, if I'm not mistaken, which meant the start of the new fiscal year. And to make it clear, this budget, however we pass it, Mr. Chair, starts October 1st. October 1st. So what this body needs to do is make sure that we make some of these areas whole again before October 1st. That's what we're working on. It doesn't mean that even if we pass all these amendments in the budget bill, Mr. Chair, nothing's going to happen until October 1st. However, there is one amendment in there that I'm concerned. The previous speaker was talking about the hospital getting their $20 million, and we had the Committee of the Whole bring in OFB, and they explained to us that there was a glitch of the $20 million that was supposed to be appropriated in FY26 to the hospital, and we had to make an amendment to allow that excess revenue to come in of the $20 million. And that was passed, if I'm not mistaken, it was already passed. And we will hold the fire to their feet to ensure that before this end of this fiscal year, that the hospital get that $20 million that we had appropriated to them in FY26. But again, Mr. Chair, the supplemental budget, different compared to FY25 when the then majority had implemented, didn't happen until after. The intention, I think, here is to make agencies whole and do it before then. And I think, you know, whatever supplemental budget we put together, I think, Mr. Chair, it should be done like the 1st of August. Gives us enough time to hold a public hearing, bring in these agencies, because we were not able to have these agencies in front of us to ask questions, to ensure that the money that they need to make them whole is true to form, to review the lapses if they really need it in a public hearing. And I remember that public hearing that we had in FY25. It was excellent. People came in, it was quite long that day. Agencies came in, nonprofits came in, because we also provided funding for nonprofit organizations that were doing a good job in our community. That's the opportunity we have as a body to sit in front of these agencies and discuss their budget and where we might have undercut them for all the people of Guam to see. I'm hoping that the oversight chair of appropriations ensures to us that it's going to be sooner than later, and as long as we meet before that October 1st deadline so that we start a new fiscal year with a budget that we are all comfortable with. And again, Mr. Chair, I can't reiterate more how important it is for us to have these agencies in front of us to tell them why they need that additional money, or why they need to be made whole, or why they have lapses. Because those lapses can go to other critical areas, most especially when it comes to hiring individuals and staff. It gives us the opportunity to ask. So I just wanted to reiterate that, Mr. Chair, and ensure that this supplemental budget does come way before the October 1st of the new fiscal year in FY 2027. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taidugui. Any other member wish to speak on the motion? Senator Perez, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I concur with the retiring speakers that there are really some truly needed amendments that should be considered within this budget rather than wait for months for a supplemental budget. you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, this information didn't come to light during public hearings, budget hearings. We were told that there was discussions on the side with these agencies, but we cannot confirm the accuracy of those statements. And, but we have learned through this process that we've been getting texts from agencies that this budget is shortchanging very much needed services. Within Guam Behavioral Health, $2.9 million, they need that for the 24-hour Level 2 residential homes program, the Drop-In and Resource Center for Homeless, the Youth Therapeutic Group Home, which, by the way, was included in the budget but was left out of this particular substitute bill. And so these are one of many amendments that aim to close that gap. These are contracts that our people are relying on. Our agencies are relying on to serve the people that need these services. We are in the middle of a meth crisis. There are some amendments that I have proffered to address this. There are people on the waiting list. Many of my colleagues have gone to the opening of the Lighthouse Recovery run by the Salvation Army. There are people on the waiting list, and so one of my amendments would go towards increasing the capacity to help those recover. And recovery is not a one-time thing, it's a long-term commitment. Another one of my amendments addresses that, addresses detoxification rehabilitation services. We have issues, we have problems amongst our youth. In fact, Guam, unfortunately, differs from the US, where suicide is most prevalent amongst the elderly. Here on Guam, it's our youth. I have amendments to address that and to ensure that our youth are given the opportunities to address mental health needs before they get to that crisis point. That was another of my amendments. Prevention is always more cost-effective. The other amendments I have is addressing another crisis in our community, the need for foster care. We have more foster children than foster homes that can accept them, registered foster parents. One of my amendments addresses that huge crisis and need in our community, which this budget did not consider. And it's really critical. If we want to invest in our island, we need to invest in these critical infrastructure. Early childhood development, that is a transformational investment in our community. Children who do not receive a sufficient developmental exposure are already behind 9 months after birth. And what does that mean? That means our children are not ready for school when it comes time. We have the power to address these changes head on and early and change the trajectory of our educational system, as well as our society, by ensuring that we are creating a workforce for a new economy that we desperately need. So I say, do not put off these amendments. I say, let's deal with it now. Let's invest in our people, in our future. The budget is a time to discern what is needed from what is needs from wants. These are the true needs of our community. Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Any other member wish to speak on the amendment, on the motion? Senator Law, you're recognized.
Thank you. I object to the motion to remove all the floor amendments that are pending right now under miscellaneous appropriations. This is exactly where they were promised they would be considered. I think the whole motion is premised on a lie, that part where they said, we've never passed phantom appropriations. That's exactly what they passed. Phantom appropriations last year in the $35 million to GMH and then $20 million to GMH, which we've been trying to correct since December, but it's been sitting in committee without a hearing. So we're finally going to correct it now, a year later. Then they say in earlier chapters, oh, these amendments are not in order here, some random rule, and we're going to put them in miscellaneous. And don't worry, we're going to address these in miscellaneous. And now there's a motion in miscellaneous to say, we're not going to address them at all. We're not even going to let anyone speak on any single one of them. And then this whole premise, even the beginning of this whole session, that we have to do a budget before the primary election. I've never heard a budget tied to an election cycle. Now we want to tie it to the primary and the general. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I can't see how that would make any sense to the people of Guam, how that serves our agencies. The general's not till November. So our agencies will have begun the fiscal year without the ability to plan their hiring, their procurement, and we will end up again in that cycle of they couldn't spend their money. They couldn't plan what they were going to do in that fiscal year. They couldn't complete a police cycle because they had to wait until halfway through the fiscal year until they would have enough money. Tying it to an election is the opposite of all the promises that are being made regarding transparency. Refusing to let us hash this out right now, that's zero transparency. That's let's go to the back room and have a deal. It's the opposite of good faith, good sense, good fiscal policy, and it's the opposite of hard work for the people of Guam who are struggling right now, who deserve our hard work right now. And this same, yes, so we have lots of people who want to make floor amendments and the totals over the amount that we have available. What's new about that? Nothing. That's how the legislative process works. We have a ton of bills pending right now to use excess that have not moved in committee. Those probably also exceed the amount that is available. That's what the word prioritize in legislatures means. Prioritize the needs. The governor wants to spend the exact same money in the bill she sent down yesterday. But we weren't allowed to discuss that or even to find out the background of what those needs really are. It's just an announcement that I need this. There's no substance that we can debate here. But whether any of those requests is more important than any of these. I also have floor amendments, obviously, that weren't addressed in other chapters that I would like addressed in this chapter, including power credits in light of the increase in LEAC to every home on Guam. To fund retirees up to the amount that they are supposed to have, according to BBMR. To fund the refurbishment of the Manila Public Health Clinic. The police officers' training cycle, and more. So I absolutely object to the motion that we're going to blow all this work off and leave it for someone else, some other time, some more politically advantageous time for somebody. And I think those agencies that need money in order to serve the people of Guam as the people of Guam deserve should have that money, and they should be able to plan to spend it in the beginning of the fiscal year. Si Dios mas.
Thank you, Senator Tlahi. There is an objection into the motion to delete all the floor amendments on Section 11 miscellaneous appropriations. I'm sorry, Speaker. I didn't see you. Speaker Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, Mr. Chair, I sat here and listened to many of the passionate arguments, but also in the passionate arguments, I heard words like disingenuous, disrespectful, doesn't make any sense. And this is not being done in good faith. But let's go back to the facts. There are a total of $249 million, over $249 million in proposals through floor amendments. On top of that, there's another close to $40 million ask from the governor in the bill that she sent to us. That's $289 million. With the only funds available is $39 million. We're not magicians. It's a severe mismatch. When you've got all of these needs, if you will, and I'm not going to discount, you know, what the purposes are for. Everybody has got, I'm sure, a perfectly good reason for wanting the money. But the fact of the matter is, there isn't enough. Should we then go into an argument, go into a discussion, stand on our soapboxes, beat our chests, yell at the highest, with our highest voices, that my proposal is better than the other? Therefore, I should be considered? And then, what do we say when, okay, guys, there's no more money? How then do you tell that to the people that you promised? That, you know, I tried. There was no money, but I tried. We have a duty to be fiscally responsible. We have a duty to uphold public trust. We have a duty not to lie. And I am not going to be part of a process knowing full well that there's only $39 million and have a discussion on how we're going to fit $249 million worth of promises into it. Nor do I think many of my colleagues will. I can just imagine if you put this list out, put it amongst the group here. decide which one of the 39, which one of the things of these proposals do you want to see go through with the $39 million? You know what will happen? You'll have more people be angry at us. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Duenas would like to close on your motion.
Susmasi, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I understand some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle might try to drive a wedge on this side of the aisle, but I want to be clear. I was very clear in my comments that there are very good amendments in here. In fact, a lot of the very good amendments and the responsible ones have been proffered by our side of the aisle. Mr. Chair, you know, as the retiring speaker was saying, this is not about a 0.5 BPT anymore. Because if you were to do every single one of these amendments plus the governor's request, you would need a 9 or 10% BPT. Just do the math. To put another $300 million in this budget, that 0.5 is meaningless. That's a drop in the bucket. So this is not a discussion about the 0.5 BPT anymore, Mr. Chair. And I'm glad that, you know, my good colleague in the back corner from Tamuning mentioned it's true. We fought hard to make sure the hospital, the appropriate area in that chapter, because that money is already appropriated, is going to be distributed. And I want to be clear, Mr. Chair. The Department of Administration and BBMR actually released the first $1 million of the $20 million. We thought that there was going to be an allocation schedule throughout the year. It was much later when the committee found out that they discontinued that allocation to the hospital because they had discovered in the language, and this has been communicated. Anyone who has a question, go talk to Steve Guerrero from OFB. This has been communicated very clearly from Department of Administration and BBMR when we asked, why are you not continuing to show the $20 million in the CRER that would need to be netted out? And they told us they made an appropriation to begin with, an allocation, a schedule for distribution to the hospital, but then discontinued it when they discovered the language. And they say that's their interpretation of what net means. Net means you have to have an audit. It's also one of the reasons, Mr. Chair, when there's representations in this budget that we'll use 25 revenues. Well, those are net revenues as well, Mr. Chair, because the audit's not complete for the 2025 revenues. So when we go carefully for a supplemental budget, which I support, and once again, I thank several of my colleagues for saying, you know, let's make sure we do this, and I'm on board to do that. But Mr. Chair, once again, going back to the process of the supplemental, it was done because it was done responsibly, Mr. Chair. It was known that there was a set amount to be appropriated, not what this is trying to do. That's all. I never once disparaged any amendment. It was the process. It was that if you go through this Hunger Games process of amendment by amendment, picking winners and losers when there's so much vital things in here to do with a limited amount of appropriation capability, let's do it in a manner where we're operating from a revenue source that is secured, understood that it's available for appropriation, and really recognizing our real priorities going forward. So with that, Mr. Chair, I once again reiterate my motion to remove all these amendments from the budget and proceed with the budget and work collectively together to supplement it as we go forward. And that's my motion at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. On the motion to remove all the floor amendments on miscellaneous appropriations, Chapter 11, there has been an objection.
Roll call.
There's been a motion. There is a move for a roll call. Clerk?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Your point of order.
Mason's Section 688, limitations of the Committee of the Whole. Number 2, a Committee of the Whole cannot order a vote by roll call taken on any proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point of order is taken. Thank you, Senator Gumatauta. All those in favor of the amendment to of the motion?
Chair, we're not going to have a roll call to see which senators in here don't support.
You'll be able to see by the raise of hands.
Yep, Mr. Chair, also point of order. There's a rule in our standing rules allowing for roll call vote at the call of 3 members, and I think that overrules the Masons, and our rules even say when there's a conflict that our standing rules are going to prevail.
They just don't want anyone to know who in here doesn't support power credits or services for autistic kids or services for those with severe emotional or mental disorders.
Thank you.
Point of order is taken already. Your point of order?
Again, Mr. Chair, again, limitations on the Committee of the Whole, Section 6881. The Committee of the Whole, like other committees, derives its authority solely from the body and is confined strictly to the powers delegated to it. But again, number 3, a Committee of the Whole cannot order a vote by roll call taken on any proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Gumatauta.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. If you're going to repeat, then I'm going to repeat. There is a standing rule that allows for roll call at the call of 3 members, and there were 3 members calling for that. And our standing rules say where there's any conflict between our standing rules and the Masons' rules, that the standing rules shall prevail.
Thank you for your point of order, Senator Terlahi. We're going to take the roll call. I need 3 members to reiterate their motion for the roll call.
Vice Speaker, I would like a roll call so that the people of Guam can see who supports.
Roll call. We have 3 members who have voiced for roll call. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Vice Speaker Atta. Vice Speaker Atta, yea. Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett, nay. Speaker Blas.
Yes.
Speaker Blas, yea. Senator Borja. Senator Borja, yea. Senator Calvo. Senator Calvo, yea. Senator Dueñas. Senator Dueñas, yea. Senator Gumatauta. Senator Gumatauta, yea. Senator Lujan. Senator Lujan, yea. Senator Muñoz Barnes. Senator Muñoz Barnes, pass. Senator Parkinson. Senator Parkinson, nay. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, nay. Senator Salas Matanani.
No.
Senator Salas Matanani, nay. Senator San Agustin. Senator San Agustin, yay. Senator Taitagui.
Ngan.
Senator Taitagui, yay. Senator Terlahi. Senator Terlahi, nay. Senator Muñoz Barnes. Senator Muñoz Barnes, nay.
On a motion to remove the floor amendments on miscellaneous appropriations on Chapter 11. 9 members yes, 6 yeas, 9 yeas, 6 nays. Motion passes. I'm going to take a 1-minute recess.
Colleagues, the Committee of the Whole is back in order. Chapter 11 is closed. We are moving now to Chapter 12.
No, I'd like to discuss Chapter 11.
Okay. Senator Tula, you recognize.
Thank you. So the first part of Chapter 11 is the appropriations to retirees for supplemental annuity benefits and other costs. And while the amount was slightly increased, about $200,000 more than last fiscal year for the supplemental annuity benefits for our retirees, according to BBMR, on the first day of session, they told us that this amount in our bill is still $778,000 less than what is necessary for our retirees. And I know some people say they talked to the retirement fund and that they said that's okay, they're going to deal with it, but I don't know if you've ever got calls from the retirees because of delays in getting their supplemental benefits to them or their COLA, and I don't want to see anything like that happen, and I don't think there's any reason for that to happen, and so I want to just state that on the record for my concern that according to BBMR, and if we're supposed to rely on what DOA and BBMR contribute to us, that this money is not enough to cover the retirees, and I think that's sad. That we're going to not allow the amendment to this chapter that was going to take care of bringing this amount up to what is absolutely required based on previous fiscal year's actual costs. That's what they said. There is a provision in here for the COLA. $2,500 to each retiree of the government of Guam. So this is for fiscal year 2027. So hopefully it can be paid any time during fiscal year, hopefully earlier rather than later, but no later than December 31. So again, I hope that these retirees, because the money seems to be available, that they're going to get their COLAs immediately after the beginning of the fiscal year. It talks about the retiree medical, dental, and life insurance expenses, and I think makes the same appropriation as last year. Again, when they were questioned, DOA, although they're the ones negotiating this health insurance contract, they did not give us any amounts as to, or OFB were not able to give us any amounts as to what effect the new health insurance contract is going to have for retirees or for any other agency in the government. This part of the bill authorizes again, and I guess I'm curious about this, another real property triennial reevaluation. It says the governor is authorized to expend such funds necessary to procure the services for the real property tax triennial revaluation. I'm pretty sure it was Revenue Tax who told us they just finished doing that last year. They have the new revaluation. They are just waiting to have that uploaded into a program that they can send out the invoices and have a new tax roll. So I'm not sure that we want to be doing a real property triennial reevaluation. Triennial means every 3 years if they're just going to be implementing one this year. This also authorizes, but doesn't put any specific money to different things like GPD headquarters in Tizen, sports field in Tizen, and Guam Police Department Jigo Precinct, and then it makes an appropriation for $3.5 million to the Guam Preservation Trust for the FQ Sanchez school property down in Umatec. We haven't had enough time to discuss all of these, and obviously my time is out, but I would have liked to talk to OB about some of these, but again, our time on that part was taken up removing all of our amendments to this section that would have brought in additional funding for agencies that have been obviously shortchanged in this budget, and that it's the critical services that are actually going to impact people.
Thank you, Senator. On Chapter 11, anybody wish to speak on Chapter? Senator Montanani, you're recognized.
Can we get OFB in so that we can ask questions about these different sections and putting dollar figures?
Sure. 1 minute recess.
Thank you.
The committee of the whole is back in order. Just before
Miss-
yes.
Mr. Chair, just a simple request, because a question was already asked about the information on the numbers, and I know that the senator is going to be asking those questions. If OB can just cover from page 134 and just tell us if the number's still true, so that we can cover it instead of jumping from pages to pages. Just go down the list and be done with it. Thank you, sir.
That'll be taken consideration. Senator Montanani has the floor at this point.
Yes.
Just a real quick, since it was brought up by the retiring speaker, on BBMR's second letter to the committee on July 14th, they once again concurred with the number for COLA. Senator Montanani, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start on page 141, Section 7, Pacific Islands Development Bank. How much is typically deposited into this Pacific Islands Development Bank, and what exactly is it? Page 141, Section 7.
Yes, Senator, this section of the bill basically just authorizes the governor to deposit whatever sums necessary to, I believe it's our membership into the Pacific Islands Development Bank, which is authorized under Public Law 2218.
Do you have anywhere in your database and your records that kind of gives us an indication of how much is actually deposited into this fund?
There's nothing the EBR that specifically has this as an expense. I mean, the EBR, the CRE report, that has a specific amount for this particular expense.
I know, but you've been with OFB for several years. Do you have an idea?
They have not indicated any amount other than the fact that they request for the authorization in the law, and we just normally put it there, and it's been there for the last several years.
Do you have a total amount of how much is actually in this, how much has been deposited? You have no information, nothing? So you can deposit whatever amount she wants? I'm just kind of trying to understand.
I have a few figures in my head, but
Please
because
let us
I don't
know
want
what
to
those figures are.
no, because I can't substantiate it right now, I just defer not to say.
But it's not
an
21
amount.
million, right?
Oh, no.
Okay, just checking. It's 1 million? 1 million? About 1 million, maybe?
Could be roughly about $1 million.
The Competitive Wage Act study, how much does that usually cost? Based on all your years of experience?
Again, Senator, I would have to go back and look into the records of the previous years to see exactly what the cost was. For example, like the Hayes study that was done many, many years ago, and some other costs that was, some other expenses that were made for similar Wage Act studies, but I don't have that amount right now.
So you don't think it'd be like 1.8 million that, could go to like DISID, right?
I don't believe the wage study goes that high, but I know it's in a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars, yes.
Thank you. What about Section 9, real property triennial reevaluation? How much does that usually cost?
Again, Senator, this is one of the provisions that the administration has requested to be reflected in the budget. This provision has been there for several years over the last couple of budget acts, but as far as the actual triennial studies being conducted, it has not.
But more than likely not, or possibly even more, it could be 3 million that could go to like public health or even Guam behavioral.
That, again, not knowing an amount would be difficult to substantiate what the cost would be.
GPD headquarters in Teton, do you have a rough estimate on what you think that might, how much money would be needed for costs associated with financing to include leaseback agreements, design, construction, maintenance, and related expenses of the new Guam Police Department headquarters to be located in Teton? Rough estimate, maybe?
I believe the amount that was mentioned again, Senator, at this point, since they have not indicated to us any specific amount, they were just seeking for the authorization. And I believe once they identify going through the process of determining what the actual project costs, I would assume most likely they would come back to the legislature to seek funding for the project.
Okay. Again, I was just trying to get a number because there's several amendments that could have gone to help, like autistic children, since I would think it's a priority. So I would assume that you don't have an answer to Section 11 or Section 12. On Section 13, this appropriation to the Guam Preservation Trust for the renovation of the former F.Q. Sanchez Elementary School property. I remember when DOA and BBMR were here, I asked about the fiscal year 2024 audited excess revenues, and they said there was zero. Could you kind of explain that? Is there any excess revenues? Because this appropriates $3.5 million from FY 2024 audited excess revenues. I asked specifically about this.
Based on the FY24 audit, there seems to be a balance in the audit that says that there are basically funds available that whatever was obligated in terms of appropriation versus what was expended, there is an available balance. I can give you the balance based on the audit. Based on the audit, Senator, you're showing a balance of $98.14 million. But please bear in mind, there's a lot of other things that need to be considered going forward. But as of the 24 audit, that's what it reflects as the balance.
Right, and that's exactly what I asked of a DOA, that the audit was showing a $98 million in excess revenues and whether any reconciliations were conducted. And by the end of the response, it was zero. So it's good to hear, and I'm really hopeful that there is this 98 or any funding available to support this appropriation, because this is a priority. Thank you.
There is not 98 million, but my conversations with Ed was he was using the rule of 50%, which means everything above the 98 cut in half is what has been appropriated to. But they have a fund balance that they mandate carrying forward that they only appropriate 50% of what's available in order to be able to maintain a proper fund balance.
So then are you saying that the responses from Mr. Byrne were not truthful?
No, I'm saying that there's a clarification to his response, that he has been operating under, and this body has been knowing that during several fiscal years now, that he operates under a rule of 50, meaning you only appropriate 50% of actual audited revenues or even unaudited revenues.
Okay, thank you, because I think that if we go into the committee on the whole tomorrow, we should expect some clarity, specificity, and accuracy. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine, and we'll ask for all of that. Thank you, Senator.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chair. Are you
Yes.
saying there's 180 million
No,
in that
no,
fund?
no.
Can you
What-
please be exact?
So what I'm saying is that the rule of 50 is audited revenues, and you don't appropriate above 50% of that.
But what is the balance?
So the
exact
balance as of the
balance?
audit was 98. So that means more than likely there's probably close to 40-some million appropriated against it. And we can get that information during the recess in terms of what funding's available. But that's been the rule. So we will get you the numbers.
Did OFB's number include things that were appropriated against it? How could that be?
And that's why we use the grand total right now, but using the rule of 50, we will get the clarification. On Chapter 11, anyone else wish to speak on Chapter 11? Senator San Agustin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that on page 142, when we talk about section 10, 11, 12, it ends with subject to legislative appropriation. My colleagues, please understand that when the agency comes up with what it's going to cost, then they'll ask the legislature, can you fund this? So we can go on a lease-to-lease back agreement. That's when you will know the amount. So thinking that it might be money available, there's no money. Now, going back, Mr. Chairman, if OB can, starting from page 134, any dollar amount identified there, like section 1A, 5 million, is that still true? Or is there need to be an adjustment? Because BMR, and DOA made some clarification of whatever. I'm just concerned about moving forward, that the numbers still exist, because we need to all know this. And that's on page 134. And then just moving forward, just cover the whole chapter. If there's any dollar amount, just validate that it's still valid. That's all. Because I know the budget was created earlier, and after the committee of the whole started, the numbers have changed. And if it has, just tell us, so we'll know. Because when a supplemental comes up, we need to know what might be there. That's all, if there's any. Steve, if you can. Start from page 134 at the very top, section 1A. Is that number still valid, 5.263176? And moving forward?
Yes, it is, Senator.
Okay. Moving on now to the next page will be 136, 7,141,255. Is that still valid? or the numbers reduced or increased?
It increased, Senator. This is an increase over the EBR.
Which means how much more? Just so we know what we're playing
It's
with.
about 878,000 more.
Oh, okay. How will we be able to fund that? Because we're short. We'll figure that out when we get to the supplemental. Mr. Chairman, maybe you can clarify how we may be able to fix that moving target?
Yeah, Senator, the increase was attributed, I believe, to additional employees being brought into the program that wasn't part of the original number that was submitted in the EBR.
Okay, moving down to letter H, 321,643 for the governor and lieutenant governor.
Yes, Senator, it's the same.
Okay, moving down, letter I. I'm just going to try to move through it real quick, Steve, so just verify yes or no, and if there's an increase, then please identify. 115,383 for judges.
Yes, the appropriation for the judge pension was adjusted. In the EBR, it indicated, I believe, the pension for 2 judges. However, since the submission of the EBR and our appropriating, there is 1 judge that has passed away. Therefore, the requirement is only to fund 1 judge pension going forward.
Which means the 115 is too much?
So the 115,383 is the amount needed for that pension.
Thank you. Just trying to move along real quick, if there's anything else. COLA, page 140, 19,657,500. Because I know there's going to be, or there's a lot of folks that are retired, so is that number still pretty accurate coming from the retirement fund? Based on their projection?
Yes, the amount of the 19.7 million, Senator, is the amount requested by retirement to fund the COLA for 27.
And that's based on the projection of the people that may retire, right? Is it based on the projection of folks retiring or folks that have already retired? Because I know they do create a list of possible retirees. They come up with a number. Sometimes it's high, and then when they finally, by the time the budget is done, it could drop. Am I correct? And has it dropped before?
You're correct, Senator, and this number actually came from the retirement.
Okay, so we can just hope that the number is not the exact amount, maybe less. The likelihood it'd be less, not more, correct? Because COLA is given, there's a certain period that you have to retire to receive it in the coming COLA period, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to page 141. Section 6, you got 59 million. Is that still current? Still?
It's higher than 26, but without EBR and GGR.
Well, I know those are projected numbers, so I'm assuming they are.
Yes, we agree with the amount reflected in the EBR.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very simple. It cleared the books.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. On Chapter 11, Senator Tadigue, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to continue on from our previous speaker to go down the list on page 142. Let's look at that. The appropriation for preservation trust for the renovation. Was this something that was given to them last year? What is the situation with regards to this?
Actually, I can take that one.
Okay.
So we had the public hearing on the reappointments of the board members, and during that time, they reiterated the commitment to the FQ Sanchez renovation, that the first 3.5 million that was given to them during the groundbreaking for that phase 1 construction that we all went down and celebrated back in 2024 was enough to get them underway, but that they would need a subsequent appropriation. And the appropriation chair had been working on it prior years, but they were still doing the project as it went forward. You may have seen a couple of different news articles that we might be able to pull up that they are now closing out phase 1. And there was a number of change orders as well to the project. And so they made it clear that they would need another $3.5 million to finish the project. But it was anticipated as well that they were going to need an appropriation at some point. So it's very timely now. If we pass this budget with that $3.5 million, that will coincide really with the completion of phase 1, and this will allow them to continue to finish the FQ Sanchez project, coinciding, like I said, once again, with the fiscal year budget passing and continuing that project with the current contractor.
Mr. Chair, can you tell me what was the original amount that we had appropriated for this project?
So we didn't appropriate the first 3.5. They actually used the trust money in order to be able to do that. And they asked this body for a general fund appropriation to finish the project. So they wanted to get started. And many of us went down with the governor as well when the groundbreaking happened. And that request was also made during that time, but it didn't need to be appropriated the first time because the trust had the first $3.5 million. That's why they were able to award the contract, and the current contractor is still doing the work.
Was the question ever asked if the trust can continue to provide another additional $3.5 million? Because if you've seen their portfolio, Mr. Chair, they are quite lucrative with funding, with funds.
That was never a question, but there was a commitment for a general fund appropriation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And okay, no, thank you so much. That was my finishing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On Chapter 11, anyone else wish to speak? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, for allowing the opportunity to speak on Chapter 11. So I'm pretty sure most of my colleagues in here were anticipating that at this time we would be discussing and debating and voting on amendments to the miscellaneous chapter. Amendments we were told time and time again during this budget process by the chair that these amendments would be entertained when we reached Chapter 11. And we were told that we had to submit amendments first come, first serve. And one of the amendments I submitted with co-sponsored by Senator Parkinson was second on the drive. So I really thought I was going to be delivering some remarks on my amendment, which is the SUFU Act, Storm Assistance for You. What this amendment did was appropriate excess revenues so that we could give our people $1,000 in grants to recover from Sinlaku, Bavi, or better prepare for future storms. But unfortunately, for those of you who might not have seen it or are just joining us, the majority, with the little help from our side of the aisle, has voted to not address any of the amendments in the miscellaneous chapter. So we're not addressing assisting the people of Guam with $1,000 grants. We're not addressing money for the Guam Memorial Hospital. We're not addressing making the residential treatment fund whole. So I had also another amendment that would have appropriated $700,000 to the residential treatment fund because this budget shortchanges significantly funding for services that are designed to assist those with severe emotional mental disorders. The list goes on and on. I was surprised by the vote, actually, because we had one colleague in here from Barrigada who gave a very impassioned speech about how her agencies and departments were slashed, cut, a status quo. Yet this senator was one of the ones that raised their hand to allow this slashing and this status quo to continue in this budget. There are other amendments in here too, to fund with excess revenue services for the mobile crisis response team that responds when our people are trying to take their own lives. So although the chair in his discussion on this chapter had kind of painted these amendments as basically election year fluff, nothing could be further from the truth, because even colleagues in the majority had proffered amendments in this chapter that would have addressed the shortchangings and the shortfalls and the status quos of the very agencies they're supposed to serve, represent, and maintain oversight of. So that's what happened this morning, is we were not even allowed to talk about these amendments. We are not allowed to explain to our colleagues why we felt that it was important. And that's part of the process. Yes, there are a lot of amendments in there, and yes, they tally upwards of $200 million. But isn't that our job as senators, to come in here, to do the work, to defend our ideas, to defend the funding that we want to appropriate, to defend the causes we're trying to support? But in this perversion of a budget process, transparency is out the window. You know, yesterday, as we were anticipating heading into Chapter 11, I kind of thought to myself, how is this chair going to make good on his promise to bring this budget to a vote by July 17th? And now we know, because he's taking the entirety of the amendments in Chapter 11 and basically throwing them in the trash can. And that's how we're going to be able to vote on this bill by tomorrow. And that's unfortunate.
Thank you, Senator Barnett.
Point of information, Mr. Chair. Just following up on the statements that the previous speaker made, I did not vote in favor of that motion. Thank you.
Senator Duenas, you're recognized. Oh, I'm sorry. Any other member wish to speak? Senator Calvo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to offer some clarity on the multiple things and issues that are on hand. We all know that I'm one of the colleagues here sitting right now that was not quite happy about my agency's fate. But I do understand that having all these amendments, you know, just going through the ledger and seeing that all these amendments will result to $250 million, and we're only fighting for just a small fraction of it. I understand that we all need to recalibrate and maintain fiscal responsibility. Now, I still stand to support my agencies, and everybody knows that. And I am not contradicting myself, but I trust in the process, and I trust that we will come, like every year, every budget season, way before my time, that I trust that a sound budget will come together and that critical services will be prioritized and considered. I just wanted to offer that notion that we are confronted with a very difficult decision, $250 million worth of amendments to squeeze in a tiny fraction that we're all fighting for. I wanted to offer some clarity, Mr. Chair, on the preservation the $3.5 million that is included here in Chapter 11. Some of my colleagues probably think that it's not important, but I'd like to offer some clarity why. Because the first appropriation, Mr. Chair, was given in 2022, and we're 2026 right now. This project has been stalled for a couple years. And this project, this is actually a historical building. Why don't we want to preserve the few historical places, buildings that we have here in Guam? When this is finally renovated, you know, Mr. Chair, I was pushing for this budget from last budget, but I didn't get it. We're supposed to do Mes Chamorro 2026. It could have been a useful entity, but you know, I can wait, and here we are. Finally, we got this appropriation, 3.5. What does this mean? When this historical building gets renovated, the materials that are currently sitting right there can be useful, as opposed to it can just be, it'll be tossed away. Another reason is, can you imagine, we've been fighting over and over about the lack of schools. This can open up, we have additional school. This historical building is also set for multi-purpose, Mr. Chair. Not just a school, it could also be used by Manamcos Community Center. Not only that, there's also a discussion and a plan for a museum. So that 3.5 million that we're debating about, that some of my colleagues here are questioning about, will yield immense opportunity for our community, our children, our Manamco, and our community in general. So I think it's really justified to include here, and I'm very thankful in this section of this budget. I'm very thankful that this has been included, finally, after a couple of years. We recognize that this is needed in our community. It's not just about renovating the historical building, but it's providing for our kids. There's discussion for charter school. For our Manamco, there's discussion to use this as a portion of it for a community center for Manamcos, and discussion for a museum down south. That would also help with our tourism efforts and bring in opportunities down south. So, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate to clarify matters.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Yeah, just a question for OFB. So I noticed there's a huge difference in Section 6, retiree medical dental life insurance from last year. Is that a result of the premiums increasing?
I don't have the variance of the 14.4 million, which is the difference between the FY26 and the FY27 requests. It's just that this is the amount that was requested by retirement.
Okay, is there a way to get that information? Why the increase? What's it due to?
I can inquire with retirement to see if we can get a breakdown of this amount.
Yeah, in the last budget bill, we did pass a measure where there has to be a report from the third-party administrators regarding aggregate claims. Do you have access to those reports, and if you can provide that to the body?
No, I don't have that report, Senator.
Let's hold on. Yeah, that should have been supplied monthly. You know, we were asking for information that would help inform the budget process. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate we don't have that information to really help. One of the things is we know insurance is increasing pretty dramatically, even though we have self-insurance. Has OFB taken a look at that and evaluate? Because, you know, obviously the timing of the negotiations seems to fall after the budget process. And just concerned that the increase might, the budget that we pass may not reflect the increases. I know that's one of the concerns that I have with this budget. If you can get that information to provide clarity on the status of the insurance, is my understanding, I know when the last time in one of the years there was a significant increase in premiums, and the government basically took the cost without increasing the employees' share. And so this is something that we really should be monitoring very closely as part of the budget. Any information that you can provide to this body would be very helpful. So is there a way that you can get that information today, Steve?
I can inquire with retirement to see if that information can be provided.
Okay, I appreciate that. Sections 10 and 12. So those are miscellaneous provisions, appropriations. So I guess when we talk about fairness, right, why are these? Yeah, just the yeah, should these be in miscellaneous provisions? Sections 10 through 12.
Yes, Senator, I do believe this is the appropriate section to put these provisions in.
Okay, the other thing is there was a part of the bill that was rolled out of order at the cost of $300,000, which would put our budget out of balance. How does the, how are we going to address that without going back to a chapter against the rules of engagement?
Can you repeat your question again?
Yeah, there was an appropriation rolled out of order in the DOA chapter. How are we going to address that if we don't have to go, if we don't go back to another part of the bill without even addressing it as a miscellaneous provision, or you know, this is going to go against rules of engagement?
I believe, Senator, the section that you're referring to deals with an allocation. It is not an appropriation.
No, it says appropriation. If you look on the DOA section, it's appropriation from the general fund.
Senator, to answer your question, it is an appropriation from the, it is an allocation from the appropriation in a separate chapter. So it's still balanced.
No, it says appropriation from the general fund.
Wait, stop. Are you talking about this? Are you referring to section 17, Senator?
Okay. Okay, I thought it said the general fund. I stand corrected. It says tourist attraction fund.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected on that one. Okay. I think those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Paris.
Mr. Chair, point of inquiry.
Senator.
The previous senator asked a question about sections 10 to 12, if it's in there, but didn't give an explanation as to why he thinks that these sections, which is not an appropriation, but it should be in the provisions, miscellaneous provisions. Can you explain? It didn't give an explanation, just thought that it should be there. Could we get an explanation, please? Why, Steve, you said section 10 to 12 should be in this chapter instead of provisions?
Again, Senator, these provisions basically we felt would be the proper place to put them, simply because it gives the authorization basically to the governor to proceed with these programs and to go basically and figure out whatever the cost is for these programs. And once that cost is determined, they would still have to come back to the legislature for appropriation.
So that would be provisions. It would not be miscellaneous appropriations. It just gives her the authority, so I don't think it, okay. Well, if that's your explanation, I just disagree with you. It should be in provisions and not miscellaneous appropriations. Thank you.
Senator Duenas.
Just want to say, Mr. Chair, just want to once again make some observations with some of the comments from my colleagues. This discussion on all of the possibilities with the amendments, I just want to draw attention to one of the retiring speakers saying that if his amendment was proffered for a certain program, and then went on to talk about all the other programs, the appropriation from that senator attempting to move was $42.5 million. And that's amendment number 2. If amendment number 2 passed, Mr. Chair, we would have been automatically completely irresponsible in entertaining any other amendment, because it even exceeds the amount that we know is possibly available for appropriation in terms of the funding sources that were identified by the senators. This is what I'm talking about, Mr. Chair. 49 amendments. That's amendment number 2. How would it be possible for everybody else who's talking about their concerns to fund their amendments if amendment number 2 passed? That's the point. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. That's why I said, in order to get to this attempt for all of these programs, which have their merit on their own basis, just amendment, and I'm sure it's not a coincidence, just amendment number 2, because the moving senator said in chapter 1 that I'm going to do this later, is really the BPT amount, supposedly. So if Amendment 2 passed, and we had a 4.5 BPT, and you still have 200 million to go, actually 210 million to go, and the governor's called us in on 31 million, what BPT do you need to service all of those amendments? I mean, I can do DI math. That sounds like between a 7.5% to 8% BPT. That's why it's structurally unsound to proceed in this manner. That's the point that I'm making, because every other senator after would go, hey, you used up all the money in Amendment 2. That's not fair. I mean, that would be the reality. There's no other way. Numbers are numbers. So I'm glad that that was brought up so that I could speak to this. So the people of Guam can see this. 49 amendments, $250 million. The governor's called us in. Tomorrow we're going to have to go in and resolve to the Committee of the Whole, bring the administration officials and everybody else in to discuss her appropriation. That is, I don't know what's going to be said tomorrow, Mr. Chair. How do you identify these as priorities, Governor? Didn't you see? We have 49 amendments with $250 million worth of appropriations. How dare you send down $39 million, $31 million, whatever millions of dollars for appropriation? I mean, we're basically playing Monopoly here right now, Mr. Chair. And I know people don't like those comments, but the truth hurts. That's the reality. Show me the money. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Muñoz-Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do apologize. I just want to say that as I was looking over the provisions, I was looking at the wrong chapter. The inquiry I have is on chapter 12, and we're not there yet, so I'll go ahead and yield back.
Okay. 1 minute recess.
Senators, we've completed Chapter 11. We'll come back at 2:15 to start Chapter 12. We are in recess.